Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We are here to talk about print in the age of misinformation, a very dramatic topic here. I have a couple slides I'm going to go through, and then we are going to jump right into our panel discussion. This should be a lot of fun. Okay. Order of events. First off, I am going to be introducing SF Zine Fest. Thank you all for being here. Very happy to have you. I will go over our house rules and expectation. We will have a discussion amongst the panelists. I will also leave a little bit of time for questions from the audience at the very end, so be thinking about questions that you might want to ask our genius panelists up here, and then we will close hopefully right around 2 p.m. All right, reading a couple things about San Francisco Zine Fest. San Francisco Zine Fest, founded in 2001 as a gathering place for writers and artists from around the world, but especially the Bay Area. Typically held as a one-day event at County Fair Building in Golden Gate Park, and after 2 years of virtual fest due to COVID, we returned to in-person at our 2022 festival at a new venue, the lovely City View at Metreon. We have over 230 artists exhibiting at this festival, with programming including screen printing workshops, zine making workshops, San Francisco Public Library giveaways, and multiple panels with guests, including this one right here. Our Safer Spaces policy here at SF Zine Fest. We are committed to providing a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of gender, gender identity expression, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. We will not tolerate harassment at SF Zine Fest events in any form. Individuals violating the Safer Spaces policy may be sanctioned or expelled from the space or the event at the discretion of any SF Zine Fest organizer. So please respect people's opinions, beliefs, differing states of being, and differing points of view. Always get explicit verbal consent before taking someone's photo or crossing other personal boundaries. Be responsible for your actions and aware that they have an effect on others regardless of your original intent. A safe and respectful community is everyone's responsibility, and please continue to wear a mask. All right, let's introduce our panelists. Starting on the end of the table here, we have Nes Aaliyah, who is a Palestinian writer-artist. They have worked in makeup, journalism, and animation. They live alone in Vancouver, where they make violent and horny artwork. And we have website and social media links for everybody. I strongly encourage you to follow all of our panelists if you are interested in their work. Next up, next to me, we have London Pinkney, is a writer and editor-in-chief of The Anna, a quarterly arts magazine that acts collection and celebration of humanity. Founded by queer folks of color, we seek to embrace the nuances of human experiences. Next up, we have Cynta Camilia, a queer Malay hard-boiled egg freshly produced from the peninsula island of Malaysia, nestled between the Southeast Asian spirits of the land and carved within the ghastly, gross, gelatinous goop of body horror practical effects. Cynta can also be categorized as a cartoon sound effect on most bad days and a cartoonist on good days, usually between Monday to Friday during the most cursed hours of the night. And last but not least, we have Sarah Maloney, a queer cartoonist and educator. They make comics across many genres that share themes of grief, loss, nature, and queerness. All right, and truly the end of the slides now. I'm Mel Gillman. I am a graphic novelist and a colored pencil artist. I mainly specialize in queer spec fic and nonfiction comics. I'm the author of several graphic novels, including As the Crow Flies, Stage Dreams, and most recently, Other Ever Afters. I'm also, as of like a hot second ago, the brand new comics chair at California College of the Arts for both the BFA and MFA programs. And I'm very excited to talk to everybody today. Okay, I think I'm going to double check. I think that is the end of our slides, finally, yes. Okay, so we are going to jump into our discussion. I have a handful of questions that I am going to ask our panelists. We can do this kind of free form, we can pass the mic amongst ourselves, we can go down the row and answer in order if we would like, or we can be more chaotic about it and hand it off to whoever wants to speak about these questions. And I will leave time at the end for audience questions too, so be thinking about what you might want to ask. But let's jump into this with, a question about zines especially. So we are all creators here. We are all people who make zines, who make physical media, and we are living in an increasingly digital landscape, publishing-wise. So I would love to hear, as an opening question from the room, what is it about print media for you? What is it that keeps you invested in print media, coming back to zines and physical publications, self-publications, and what is it about that makes that such a vibrant publishing media, even in an age when so many things are moving digital and moving online? Could I hand it to you first?
Sure. So let me upend this question by saying that Anna is mainly a digital publication, but we publish annual anthologies in print. And what we love about print, at least for our contributors, because everything we do is for the people who trust us enough with their work, we love giving them a tangible manifestation of their work. There's nothing like being a writer or being an artist and being able to hold what you've created in your hands. I think that's incredibly beautiful. And since a lot of the people who we publish are marginalized, there's a sense of privilege that comes with print because you have to be able to afford it. So to say that I am in print is kind of a badge of honor. But I also think that print is just beautiful. Everything that we publish, even when it is stories or poetry, even though we do also publish a visual art, it's an art form. Typeface is an art form. The way you use a page, the size of the zine is an art form. So it's like a little piece of art in everything that you publish.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, as a cartoonist at least, it's you're so used to, at least for me personally, my work method is digital. So it's having stuff to be printed out feels more like that physical, the physicalness of the books and the zines that I make. I think that's what kind of makes it real to me, when you're just staring at a screen. And I just enjoy the process. It's you'll probably see me at the Cursed Hours and CCA Risograph, and I'm just that experience, just kind of using your body and printing all these risograph zines and and just prints in general, kind of makes it more makes me feel more grounded as an artist, because you're so kind of used to posting on Instagram and online, and then just kind of seeing that doesn't give me the satisfaction versus going to Zine Fest and cons and giving people my work physically and being able to see them actually open my books and then go through and read my comics and tell me how they actually feel. I feel that keeps me more grounded as an artist, and that's why it's kind of important to have print media for me. So.
Thank you. Okay. I was thinking of two things when you asked us that question, and the first is I know sort of what Cynthia was saying, the confidence I get and from creating something physical, and I'm oh my gosh, this is now, I did this. And so I feel my art practice is making sure to do that for myself, and also trying to be well, any of us can do it. Please, I have some stories that I like to tell, but there's also so many more stories out there, and just there's no one between you and the paper. There's no editor, there's no publisher. I don't know, and I really, that's inspiring to me. And the second thing I was thinking about was time it takes compared to digital and physical things. If you're in the risograph or you're making zines, you have to go a certain speed, you have to slow down, and that makes me feel more present. And I think it's a good practice, to, there's a lot of instant gratification or just things that speed through our lives, but it makes me go slow, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I initially was really eager to abandon print and go fully digital. I loved that it would be easier to find sort of people who were part of, who were interested in the type of art that I made, so that I didn't need to curate it to sort of a more general audience and try to sell it that way. I liked the anonymity, and I liked that, one of the great things about social media was that it gave a voice to everybody that didn't have one in mainstream media. And now that we are, we're at the mercy of a bunch of algorithms that ensure that it is the most sensational and, dishonest stories are the ones that get told. And it's the beautiful thing about print media, about zines, is that they're published more deliberately. They're not just, people aren't just relaying spontaneous and potentially incorrect information. They can't do so spontaneously anymore. Or when they're in print media, again, we have to do everything really deliberately. We have time to research, and the connection feels really good because I guess there's only so much connection that you can have through the internet.
Thank you. Yeah, it's beautiful thinking of zines as being kind of a way to forge those human connections between, artists and storytellers and readers, and having that physical media and that slowness built into the way that we are publishing this work is a feature and not a bug in many cases. Following that up, I'd love to hear, we have everyone in the room is approaching zines in various different ways. Maybe a little bit of a edge about activism or education, or even just spreading your own personal story and your own personal experiences and channeling that through the work that you are creating. And I'd love to hear from people, what role do you personally see zines specifically and print media in the small press and self-publishing spaces? What role does this type of work play in activism and education, in your own work or in the work of the communities around you?
The Anna, the magazine that I founded and I'm the editor-in-chief of, we were really founded on, to say we are activists, honestly, it's rude to actual activists who do so much and put so much on the line. We are folks of color and queer people who can't help but be involved in things that people have decided are political, but they're just our everyday lives. But as a baby writer, back when Trump was first elected, I noticed that people just wanted my identity to be focused on how has racism ruined my life? And it has, but y'all can laugh at that. It's ruined a lot of y'all's lives too. Hi, people of color. But I found that the magazine, what I wanted to create, was a space where we can talk about more than just the pain in our lives. And obviously we could never ignore the fact that we deal with systemic issues, whether you're a person of color, you have any marginalized identity, as all of our editors do. But we also need to have a space where we're more. And the modern publishing industry really wants to fence folks of color, queer folks, and other people in a particular box. And our magazine acts as a place where our full humanity can be recognized by people that humanity is already recognized by. So we're very for the people, by the people, and our magazine sort of acts as an extension of that. In 2020, when a lot of bills against trans folks were being passed, we decided to come up with a queer erotica zine, where we celebrated the pleasure and beauty of queer bodies rather than focusing on them as a battleground. And I feel like print allowed us to do that. I got to be a smut peddler where we got to celebrate one another, and I think that's amazing.
To answer that question, I kind of agree with like London. I wouldn't call myself like an activist per se. You know, it's like, you know, when I was like back in Minneapolis during the George Floyd thing, it's like I was doing my best, but the people there were doing like more than I ever could as a cartoonist. You know, I like to think of myself more of like kind of like my father, more of like a journalist. He has a PhD in one, and he was begging for me to get one too. And unfortunately, I chose to become, well, not unfortunately, fortunately to me, unfortunately to him, because he's Southeast Asian, and you know, he either wants like a doctor in architecture or somewhere around that line. But for me, it's like, as an observer, it's like the way I use my work at least is to like observe society and then like kind of like put it into my still comics. So it's like the only thing I could think of. It's like right now I'm like trying to work on like a kind of like a little zine, like educating people on like international student laws and like how visas and work like that, because I feel like a lot of people don't know, and when they do know, and they're like, whoa, is that like for real? Like that's like the law? And I'm like, yeah, it is the law, you know, because like I'm an international student, so I'm from Malaysia. A lot of people don't know like what that's like, you know, kind of like having to kind of basically always like keep in check like how much time you kind of have here, you know, especially for like I have friends who are like running away from their own countries, or for example they can't be, you know, like queer or like whatever they are in their own country, so they're trying to get a visa to stay here, and they're not able to do that, you know, and having to go back home. So that's something I'm kind of like working on, and having that like physically as a zine could probably help like, you know, Americans or like other people, and like resources that they could do so that they're like capable of like, and at least like to keep them in the know, especially after like the international student ban that like Trump did like kind of like last couple of years. Like that was really scary. A lot of people I knew ended up having to go home, and then, you know, I was scared. I was just like, I don't really want to go home, and I didn't know what to do. And unfortunately, when Americans find out about that, like they helped, you know. So I feel like that's kind of like where I'm going at to that question, at least, is like having a physical zine and spreading that around could probably help with stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think of myself as like a storyteller or a zine maker or an educator, and then I go from there. So like if there's a story of myself that I want to tell, like I have a queer ecology series, and I'm like, I just want to draw animals and talk about how queer the world is. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, look at these worms. But also, like, I think, I mean, yeah, like, I'm really enthused by it. But also, just I want to share that perspective and with the world. And then those are just some, like, that's my interest. Those are what I want to put out there and sort of share information. But I also see zine making. You can be like a resource for activists, or like for example, I can be like, I can print that for you. Like, you want 100 copies? Like, I can do that. So like that's a little, I see it as like more of a starting point, and then I try to see like, am I gonna make art about it? Am I gonna like educate, or am I gonna share resources? And that brings me a lot of fulfillment. And it's cool because also then I'm like, you don't need me. Like, I love that. I'm like, you go do it. Like, you can go print this, or I can do it for you. Let me think of examples. I don't know, like, I've seen people at, like, protests, they'll have, like, little zines of all the chants everyone's doing. So, like, we could go print that and hand them out. Like, just, like, little things. But, yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question? That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Initially, I kind of... I tried to adopt sort of an outlook similar to London's, sort of where, you know, I wanted to make stuff that was so much more than about oppression and about how, like, racism has ruined my life, which it generally never does unless I'm at the airport and, you know, I look, and then they read that my name is Ghassan Mahmoud Tahir Shanti, and then they're like, right this way, sir. But I I kind of went full throttle in that I like my zines are like it's a really humiliating time to be a Palestinian person. So I wanted to. The zines that I have today are really vapid and irreverent and horny and gross. And do you guys know what? I'm not from here, so I don't. Do you guys know generally what gooning and baiting are? Okay. So, like, they're all about that. Like, gooners against Israel and baiters for BDS. I just, like, I am so unwilling now to sort of, like, try to create work that is pro-Palestinian, but that, like trying to carefully phrase things so that nobody could maybe accuse me of being an anti-Semite. I have just, I hope that, I hope that nobody would call my work apolitical, but I do kind of think that it's not real activism. It's really just wanting to do something that is purely free and fun and hopefully provocative and offensive and upsetting.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Something I've been thinking about a lot, listening to all four of us respond to that, is, this idea that as self-publishers, one of the beautiful things about this path forward is that we are not necessarily forced to fit our work into the boxes that gatekeepers would like for us, and their motives are always going to be profit-based, where they know which versions of our narratives are most marketable, which things are most easy for them to publicize and sell in the the marketplace that exists outside our actual needs and our actual work and our interests as human beings, and that is one of the powerful things about zine making and self-publishing in general, is that we're able to make the work that does not fit easily into those tight little capitalist boxes, and that is a benefit that we all have in front of us. Next question that I wanted to ask us was about, so I'm a professional practices teacher. I always love sharing information and tools and resources, and I would love to hear from the room what tools and strategies are working for you personally in your own creative practice right now in order to, distribute your work, get your work out there, get the things that you are making into the hands of readers who want it and should have access to the stuff that you're making. What tools are working for you right now?
I'm so happy to be on this panel because it is about print. As a digital magazine, the internet. I'm so sorry, y'all. This blocking. Let me cook. Okay. So the internet is a godsend, and it's also the worst place ever, right? Yeah, vibes. So Instagram, our own website, word of mouth and community, and honestly, Zine Fest. The Bay Area is such a small little space, and we're lucky enough to have a couple editors who live in New York, in LA, and also in Washington. So we mail our zines to them, and then they disperse it within their communities. And we just try to meet as many people as possible. And Zine Fest has been a really great way for us to be able to congregate and communicate with folks. But the internet, it's so dope, and it allows us to reach more people. Yeah.
That's a I have to think about that because it's like I've been kind of on the internet since like before the internet was kind of there, and like during the cursed YouTube days, where it's just like random poops and farts and videos. But for me, it's like I have always been kind of like obsessed with like algorithms and kind of like trying to get to know how to use that as like, you know, because it's like I remember when I was on DeviantArt, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. You can like show people online my art, right? But now it's just like kind of a hellscape for me personally because now everyone's online. So it's like, how do you, you know, as an individual creator, it's like exist in like, you know, the internet that's like, there's like billions and billions of people, right? And I've noticed recently for me, what has been helping personally is like community, because I feel like your number one fans are not like a random person on Instagram, for me at least, but it is your like cohort, your like mentors, the people you make friends with at Zine Fest. I feel like those are people that actually like actively watch and support you the most, you know? It's like I recently put my thesis that I did at CCA, right? I put it online, and I noticed it's like the first, like, you know, first couple of people that were buying it are like people that I know personally, and I feel like that meant a lot more to me than a random. And not saying like, oh, I don't appreciate random people buying my stuff. Like, I'm not saying that, but what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it's like through community, it's like that's kind of like how my work goes around, you know, and especially at Zine Fest, it's like trading. I think that's like could go back to like the question of like how print is kind of important. It's like my favorite part is like when I'm at Zine Fest and artists come up to me and they're like, do you do trades? And I'm like, hell yeah. And that connection of like giving each other this like physical trade, I feel like it kind of like warms my heart more than like a single like on Instagram. Because a single like on Instagram just feels like someone walking by your table looking at you and then be like, oh, I like that, and then they walk away, versus like an actual real person like trading zines and like kind of talking about their work and then you talking about their work. I feel like that's kind of how it helps me the most personally, but that's my strategy. And also like, unfortunately, like TikTok's also a pretty good place to like, you know, kind of make your name like out there. Like, I know everybody hates making reels and videos, and I know it sucks because we want to be like drawing, but I do think that that's like a really big skill set to have as an artist, because it's like I was just doing that and interacting with people on TikTok, and now I have like 20,000 followers on there, which is like kind of crazy. Even if it is just like probably half of them are bots, but that does kind of help your work get around, you know, especially with how like viral videos work. The algorithms see you like, oh, like a lot of people like this stuff, and then they start pushing it out, you know. Like I feel like you should like kind of fight and use the algorithm as much as it kind of sucks. So that's my little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of what has been said, I've just been nodding the whole time. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I mean, the reason I do all of this is because it brings me joy, but also like I love meeting people. Like, I think we, as artists, we can probably relate to, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, like the first time of sharing your art with someone, there's a lot of negative talk I had to like ignore and be like, you're not me, I'm ignoring you. But like what really pushed me is when I shared something with someone for the first time and I learned someone will share something back with you. And I was like, oh my God, like, and that clicked, and all of a sudden I felt more comfortable putting myself out there because it was this like sort of trade. And I just thought that was so cool, and I started meeting people that like I could learn from, or friends, or just like we had this, I was like, oh, cool, like we all exist out here, like, and we have this thing, I don't know, you start finding your people that way. And that was because of like printed, stuff. And so that's really rad, and I do agree with all the digital platform. I try not to take it too seriously, but I also have I've learned a lot of things, honestly, from the like other people on the internet. It's sort of like another kind of trade, right? Someone uploads a video and tells you about something. Hopefully now it's not like an AI person. You know, they're like, okay, now I have to navigate more, and the fake videos are obvious. But now I'm like, well, in 5 years, what will happen? But I do think there is a goodness of like being able to trade ideas or art or things, whether it's printed or online, and it's just a bigger network, right? But the people that like who seem to, I don't know why, they're like, I like what you make. A lot of it is because I went to an event, I went to a fest, I hosted something, and I met them that way. And that's really cool. And like this, I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, why me? But I'm meeting people, and that's cool. Yeah.
Thank you. I know that this was not Cynta's intention. Regardless, I hope that anybody who has stopped by a table and said, I like your work, and walked away, feels singled out and ashamed.
I love it.
No. Don't listen to them. In my bio, I had Mel say that I was in makeup and then in journalism and most recently in animation. And initially it was I wrote with no success whatsoever in any of these careers, but I'm sorry to pick on you, Cynta, but I hate funny bios, so I took that out. But I actually would love anybody to tell me how to achieve success as an artist now. I find it it's so unnavigable now. Okay. It's like the once like the Instagram algorithm got introduced as being really intense and weird in maybe 2018 or 19 or whatever. I really did not know how to sort of get my work out there. I didn't know how to find an audience, and I still don't, so I'm really grateful to be here. And if anybody has any ideas, I'm really open to them. But yeah, I would love to have sort of, I know that TikTok isn't just Generation Z, but I would love to have the sort of savvy, like the young person savvy that it would take to figure all of that out. Because I do imagine that would help a lot, but yeah, I would say I do not know what the answer is.
Could I add something a little tangential? Okay, I'm also curious how algorithms work, and I started just blocking every single ad to see what would happen. And what happened is I get really awful things that I completely don't agree with. Have been like getting on my, because I used to be like, I'm gonna just block all the awful things, and then that'll teach the algorithm like no fascism for this one. That's not what happened. It became more. I got like an eagle that had like 2 semi-automatic rifles in its hand, like walking around with American flag. I was like, what's happening? So I'm not good at the internet.
Actually,
Sorry.
So, sorry, were you about to say something?
I'll go after you.
Okay. I feel like that might actually be the key to success, is making shitty eagle gun art. But this is so, like, yeah, it's a tangent. This is so unrelated, but I do just, I need to take this opportunity to complain, because there is the TikTok, I had a TikTok for like a few weeks. I feel like that algorithm understood me immediately. And I feel like after 18 years on YouTube, it's still like, so you're a Christian, and you hate gay guys, right? And I do, but
Whoa. Just to clear my name out in the streets, I do not hate when you come over my table and say hi. I actually really like that. Just to put it out there. But I did want to add a little bit to like the whole like algorithm thing. So it's like the reason why I mentioned TikTok, I think it's because it's like we're kind of like in the age of like people not being able to like, you know, watch something more than like 2 minutes sometimes, and at most like, you know, I've realized that my attention span is like 15 seconds, which is pretty bad actually. So it's like I'm trying to, but you know, everyone's like, Cynta, you probably have ADHD, and I'm like, you know what, you're probably right about that. So maybe someday when I have, you know, yeah, insurance, you know, a job. So yeah, when the good stuff happens, no, it's okay. But I will say that it's the way that it works is very interesting because it's like everything that you kind of interact with is like how the algorithm learns, you know. So hearing you say that blocking all that gets you there, it's because it's like, well, if you block all these, we'll just give you the worst shit on the internet, right? Which is really interesting because it's like I've never even thought of that. Like on Twitter, it's like blocking certain words like keeps it away. But I feel like I've noticed with TikTok specifically, it's like the algorithm knows you too well, and it kind of freaks me out. And it's sometimes like really accurate, where it's like so accurate that you feel called out and it doesn't feel good, and it personally feels bad, you know. It's like, you are a mentally ill queer person who, and I'm just like, wow, like that's the first video I see on TikTok, and I don't appreciate that.
Like, we know what kind of VO you have.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like, you know, just to kind of add on, it's like knowing that it knows what you do and what you post. I feel like that kind of knowledge kind of helps you, like, you know, like get on the internet in the correct direction, you know? Because when I post stuff on TikTok, it kind of knows like who is going after my work because of that. And then the people I follow and the people I comment, I feel like those really help a lot. Like on Instagram, it's easier to like, but if you do have like art that you like, just like even like a fire emoji or like, you know, skull emoji, whatever it is, like just putting that on like someone's post does help you a lot, you know? And recently I found out like from a cohort member, like the hashtags don't work anymore. So don't do that. Do not use hashtags on Instagram. It is dead. That is like the dead internet like theory, like there's nothing there anymore, right? But alternatively, like if you use like alt text for images, those help a lot more. So like, you know, so like small stuff like that. So
these are like these are the, no, I don't have anything to say. Sorry. I was just gonna say, these are the answers to Mel's question that I was really desperate to hear. So like, what do I do? Like that. But putting a fire emoji on, like commenting a fire emoji, don't you feel like that's a lot like somebody walking past your table and saying, your work is fire, and then walking away?
I like so.
You're not mic'd right now. Cynta was saying that's lame.
I'm getting bullied on this panel right now, so I don't know how I feel about that.
What's your sign? You're such an instigator.
I don't want to tell you my sign.
Are you a fucking Gemini?
No, I'm worse. But like horoscope.
A Cancer?
Horoscope is fake, but I do happen to be the most Aries thing in existence.
Aries too.
You know,
It's giving self-hate.
yeah, I make zines.
Yeah, I'm a writer, so I feel it. Anyway. I love it though.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. This is great, and my next question is going to be such a downer. Oh my God. So we're down to our last like 15 minutes here, so I'm going to ask one final loaded question, and then I'm going to open this up to audience Q&A. Since the name of this panel mentions the age of misinformation, I wanted to talk about the role of truth as it intersects with all our work here. So we have people who are approaching zines in a really wide variety of, you know, genres and formats, etc. Not everybody is doing straight nonfiction here, so I'd love to hear from everybody. Like, what do you see the role of truth being in the work that you are making? Is it personal truth? Is it objective truth? Are you hiring fact checkers, or are you just checking this against, like, you know, the voice in your chest that tells you what is true and what is false when you are telling your own personal narratives? How does this influence the work that you're making?
Yeah, I think that upon hearing everyone speak, I am coming from zine making from a very different point of view because I'm a writer, so I'm more curating things in my zines. I'm not really a creator. And funny enough, misinformation's kind of my thing because I'm getting an MLIS, so I'm becoming a librarian. So yeah, give it up to the sexy librarians. Thank you. You too?
I'm currently in the process of getting my certificate.
Period. So misinformation is really important because it's part of what I do every day. But also when I was teaching English, I was trying to explain to my students that we need to exist within a shared reality. So truth is important. And at the same time, there is truths that can be subjective. There are various realities that we live in that have been erased because of colonialism, because of our own internalized, sometimes self-hate, and for a whole host of reasons. And at least the Anna, our magazine, we really try to be a home for everyone's shared realities, their own truths. And through that, there's a through line that of humanity. And I feel like recognizing one another's humanity, recognizing that, you know, people are really messy and that's okay as long as we are not actively hate criming and being absolutely terrible to one another. That it exists. To do that, you must exist within a state of certain falsehoods, I believe. So our magazine tries to right those wrongs and create a level of truth where we have a shared empathy. And I think that's the best answer I have for that.
To answer your question, I feel like it kind of goes like two ways. I think for me, narratively, like for me, it's like I make a lot of comics about my life, memoir, right? And since it's from my own reality, it's like truth kind of goes a little wonky there, and I can say whatever I want. It's like, oh yeah, I used to live in Chinatown. I lived with like a giant bear that lived in my room, and I could say that, and people would be like, did that actually happen? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That actually happened in my 200 square foot apartment. But like when it comes to nonfiction comics, that's kind of when I like take it a lot more seriously. I was fortunate to do like a comic about queerness in Malaysia, and that was hosted by like New Narrative, right? You should check them out. It's like kind of like the nib for Southeast Asians. Pretty good place to know if like you're like, oh, I've never heard of like these things happening outside of America. It's like a really good website. And one of the comics that I made was kind of like basically talking about like all the laws against like queer people, in Malaysia, and how that ties to like my own queerness, right, and practicing that back in my country. And sometimes it's like a lot of people don't know. It's like, oh yeah, in my country, like you go to jail if you're gay, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yes, that's true. That still happens in a lot of countries, and that's the part where it's like, not to be a downer, but it's like, to kind of let people know, it's like you kind of have to tell the truth, and a lot of people like don't really want to hear that, or like, people from my own country, it's like, that's not true. We're okay with the gays, like it's fine, but it's like not really. So it depends on who you're asking. Mm-hmm. So it's stuff like that, and me making comics and zines and like printing it, that's when I like kind of have to like make sure that I have these laws perfect almost. I don't usually tell people to quote me on that. I wouldn't put my name personally on Wikipedia, but I do have like people that I trust, who are really good at like kind of fact checking stuff like that. I was fortunate to work with both a lawyer and an editor for that comic, and that's what they're making sure, like all these little bunch of notes to add like laws or stuff like that towards the story that I was reading, like the story that I was writing, like that helped a lot. So that's kind of like a little bit of like what I can tell personally for me as a cartoonist, because it's like, like something I learned from my dad. It's like he's a journalist. He always wrote the truth. Something I've been taught is like not to tell people like everything about my life. And now that I've gotten older, it's like that's all I can do. It's like I won't stop yapping, right? And unfortunately, but like that's kind of how it is being a cartoonist. You are an observer, and whatever you observe, you write about these things. And these are the things that I enjoy, like reading and writing and like drawing about. So yeah, that's the best I could do.
Thank you. What an interesting question. I am asking myself all these things all the time. And the truth is, well, in my own, I guess what I'm thinking about right now is how you need, like, there's, when people, if someone is not telling the truth and the truth doesn't matter to them, there's like a few ways I feel like you can sort of tell. And like, often a lot of the really awful, like, fascists, white supremacists, like, Zionists, like, all, their truth is in the lie. Like, and what I mean by, like, you point a finger and you accuse someone of something, and there's, like, they don't seem to care, like, there's no facts, like, nothing backing it up. It's because they're actually telling the truth on themselves. And, like, so I think a lot about how, like, okay, yeah, we have truth where we fact checked and we have, like, our, what do you call it? I feel at the end of the books, right? And you're like, wow, look at all those sources. And that's one way. But there's also, like, how do you navigate just, like, you know, when someone bold-faced lies to you and it's, like, all people's emotions, and then, I don't know, like, and so I think about that a lot. Like, how do I know people that care about the truth, they often will, like, be more open and, like, almost be like, well, like, don't just trust me, like, and, like, I don't know. So you sort of, like, there's lots of ways, and I wish people cared more to ask questions, like, to be compassionate and ask questions, and, like, if they're uncomfortable, why are you uncomfortable, and do all that inside work. And, like, that is the way that I get to the truth. Like, I'm really all over the place. But I'm now thinking about, like, how I came out to myself as queer. Like, I was, like, 25 or 26, and I was just like, wow, okay. Why did I not know that about myself? And, like, just, I kept asking all these questions.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Oh, now I'm, like, 33. And so, yeah, I don't know. What is that? Someone do the math. Yeah, and just, like, that just was such a lesson to learn of, like, you can't really trust yourself and you should always ask questions. I don't know. And the truth is very interesting. And, yeah, and I am really all over the place. I'm sorry. But I'm also thinking now about my work. Like, I have queer ecology, which I actually am watching documentaries and reading. But I'm also, like, I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not a biologist. Like, you should, like, double check. This is just me being curious and I'm sharing. So I'm like, you know, and then the memoir, right? Like, memoir, I'm like, this is sort of how it felt at that time. There's truth in, like, what the story is about and what I'm trying to get across. But is that me? It's like a version of me. I don't know, and that gets all confusing. And then my, like, queer sci-fi, I'll start out with science and then I get speculative, but I don't tell anyone. It just happens, and I don't know. Yeah, it's a great question.
7. You've been queer for 7 years. I just
okay,
like
7.
15 minutes to do that math.
Man, I'm still not even a teen. Okay.
Okay. Wait, I might be wrong. Talk about truth. You should fact check that. You said that your question was going to be a downer. I don't think it's a downer, but I think my answer is going to be. I think that everything is bad and it's going to get worse. And we live in the age of misinformation. We live in really anti-intellectual times. There is a vested interest in the powers that be have in, you know, keeping things that way. And I don't think that I can possibly agree with you more emphatically about, like, I am never not thinking about, like, how people's truth is, like, you know, like, it would be so much easier if people were being deliberately dishonest than, you know, knowing that, you know, that people believe the misinformation that they're spreading a lot of the time. This is kind of a weird anecdote, but I think it's related. I started taking Vyvanse, which is why I was trying to push it on you. I started taking Vyvanse at fairly recently when I was in my later 30s, and I could no longer dissociate constantly, and I was listening when people talked, and I remembered what they were saying. I noticed what people were saying and doing, and I am like really. I have almost like a pathological obsession with like things that are true, and like with people being honest and with people being accountable, and I'm really exercised about dishonesty and a lack of accountability. And there was a point about a year into my Vyvanse journey when I realized that a lot of the people in my life that I loved, that I was screaming at constantly for lying about tiny things that didn't matter, but it mattered to me that they were lying. About a year into taking Vyvanse, I realized that, like I must have caused these people a lot of pain every time I confronted them about that stuff, because they really believed, well, not everyone, but they really believed what they were saying, the lie that they were saying, even if it had just happened. Sometimes some brains are able to like reinterpret and rewrite what happened. I think that maybe it's, I don't know if it's related to sort of like a social media, what we put our brains through by like, ingesting however many videos by however many people in a short span. But I think that it has, I just feel like we're all so much more vulnerable and susceptible to misinformation. And I do think it's just going to continue getting worse. But something I always tell myself is one day I will be dead and at peace, and none of this will matter. That usually gets laughs. London, your joke did not fail as epically as that one. I do really.
Wait, what?
Every time I had like a difficult makeup client, it was like, one day I will be dead and at peace, and this eyeliner will not matter.
Unless you had something you wanted to say. All right, so just to check in on time, we are at 2 p.m., but we started a little bit late, so I do want to leave a little bit of time for a couple quick questions from the audience. For panelists, by the way, how I'm going to do this is we don't have to like hand the microphone down the line and get an answer from everybody. We can popcorn this around depending on who wants to chime in. But audience members, I would love it if a couple of you wanted to ask us questions. No pressure, anybody? Oh. Me? All right.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm going to deliver the microphone to you if it'll reach.
I feel like this is also like sort of a weird downer / heavy. I don't know. Something. Fuck capitalism. I feel like the age of misinformation is a perfect breeding ground for things like advertisement and for things like commodification, and that includes the commodification of bodies and identities. In what ways, through your work, have you had to grapple with? I remember hearing someone talk about the way I guess queer POC especially are fenced into this box of how they want to be framed and sold. So just targeting that specifically, I was wondering how you would navigate that through your work.
Something that I always tell people, because I'm actually a nonfiction writer, we love misinformation and writing about it. I refuse to pimp out my people's pain. I will speak as a Black person. Give it up to Black people. Yeah, niggas. We've given enough, and I feel like there is like a really interesting conversation regarding witnessing people's pain in terms of allyship. And at least in the nature of my work as a publisher, I don't want people to just like witness the pain of the contributors. And I think that witnessing is incredibly important, but also there needs to be action too. You need to do a lot more, because I don't want to just see people die and be like, damn, that's sad. So I think that we really try to ensure that if we're going to publish a difficult piece or a piece about a systemic issue, either as editors, we're trying to do something about it in our own personal life, reaching out to grassroots organizations, and we just don't fuck with people who do that. In my personal life, I work with Black Panthers who are still incarcerated and trying to get them out of prison, because no one should be in prison, period, but especially elders who did nothing wrong and who are political prisoners. And there are people in Oakland who are Black, have been imprisoned, and want to make T-shirts about how Black Lives Matter. And that's fucking stupid, because capitalism is the reason that I speak English and that my people are in this country in the first place. So, reading up on why everything the way that it is, and being aware and really intentional about like, what is your art really doing, is how we sort of just keep honest with ourselves. Because I don't think I'd be able to sleep well at night if I knew that me with my MFA getting another master's degree is creating Black art and making money off of it, or creating like trauma art and making money off of it. And again, there's a space for everything, and I'm really not one to like not stare into the void on things. Love a good stare into the void, but money is not. I thought you were a Gemini. I love Geminis. I love Aries. I'm a Libra.
I don't know what you think about that, but I love you too.
I love you. We're besties now. Yeah, we're all besties now. Come on, parasocial relationships. Long story short, Black capitalism and capitalism will not save us, and we will have to kill Beyonce and the revolution. This is recorded, right? We're gonna have to do it.
I think to chime in a little bit, thinking about your question, especially in the age of like AI and anything can be generated within like seconds, right? I always like tell myself, it's like I will not know everything perfectly, but I kind of trust my gut when it comes to that, especially as like a cartoonist. It's like, oh, if something just feels off, your body will just kind of let you know? Especially it's like when I'm talking to people, which is also my toxic trait, is that if I'm listening to you and I'm like, I don't think that sounds correct, and I Google it in front of you, it's like, I notice it's like my parents, it's like when they share stuff on, and I'm sorry parents if you're watching this later, but like basically like if stuff gets shared on Facebook and WhatsApp, right? And they believe it like 100% authentically. And something it's like I've noticed is like my habit from seeing them do that is that when I read something and I'm like, this sentence or like this fact just sounds kind of off, it's like my immediate action or judgment is to Google it, right? And when you Google it, that's also like a skill set in itself, right? Because you can't just trust everything you see on the internet. So it's like you see something, you like double check it, triple check it, You ask your friends. I feel like that's also like a great way to like kind of know something, because like you have friends that are like, oh, I know this and this and this, and you start talking. I think that's like conversation, right? That kind of helps with like stuff like that. But I always tell people, it's like one thing that you should also do is like don't hold every POC person as like this great messiah for every question. It's like, yeah, I am a Malaysian person, I am Malay, right? I'm an international student, but don't hold me like, on a cross for everything that you want to talk about, is what I would tell people, right? Like, if you want to say something, you can quote me, but then, go back to the internet and then try to double check that, because like people also make mistakes. It's probably the best way I could answer that, so.
You feel like seeing your family, seeing your parents believe everything on WhatsApp with impunity has made you more skeptical and more...
Oh, absolutely, especially even now more like with AI and stuff, it's like, it looks kind of incredibly realistic and it freaks me out. And I think what started to like make me notice even more is that I used to be like, well, it won't bother me. They don't care about comics. Nobody, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, you see like your other people's comics and their works being fed into the machine, right? You start feeling like, oh, it's not gonna do with me. Like, I don't think computers can make comics. And then you start seeing it actually happen, right? And that was like something that I didn't like, not that I didn't care about, but I was just like, oh, it's not gonna affect me. But I feel like with stuff like this, it affects everyone. Yeah. It affects like writers too, like people who make videos and like photographs and stuff like that. So I feel like in the age of like misinformation, right? Double check, triple check all your sources, because you can't trust like the little guy on twitter.com to tell you if it's real or not, or like on Facebook if it's AI generated or not, right? So that's the best I could say.
Yes. Let's see here. I think learning how to say like no is really important. Learning like when to say yes, and like also learning how to like apologize and like fix something properly, or also being like, well, I fucked up and actually I have to move on and like hope that accept what I did. I don't know, and sort of those things is how I try to move forward. Like when you're talking, I was thinking about like commerce, I guess, like our art and like what we're putting out there and like how it's connected, or working in capitalism, because it's easy to get carried away or like not even know what you want anymore, and asking, just going back to questions, always asking like, wait, is this what I want? If so, why? And like also, how is this going to affect, like, what does it mean that I'm doing it, I guess? And like, yeah, lots of questions. And also just being like, I feel foolish often, and just being humbled by that and being like, okay, learning and like, just listening. But also just like, don't be stagnant, like keep like trying and doing.
Being comfortable saying, I don't know, but also putting in the effort to know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if that's just sort of what I was thinking about from your question. Yeah. It's tricky.
Should I like lighten up on all of the gruesome stuff that I've been saying?
We are, it is 2:10 now, so I do have to start wrapping this up. If you do want to end us on a lighthearted note.
It's not lighthearted, it's just gross. Once again, I think that our autonomy is taken from us and everything will only get worse. But one way to sort of stop people from, or to try to have a sense of autonomy when people are commodifying your body, I think, is to masturbate constantly, which is what I'm hoping my zines will prompt all of you to do. And that's it.
Thank you, everyone. So we are at 2:10, so I am going to wrap this up. But the final really, really quick question that I wanted to hand the microphone down, if you could all just tell us where people can find your table on the show floor, so that if they have more burning questions to ask you, or they can come and hopefully find some of your beautiful zines, where should they find you? Your beautiful masturbatory zines, where can they find them?
We're against the window, like right across the street from the MoMA. Number something.
My table is $240. I have 50 pieces of my thesis. It would be nice if everybody bought one. That would be cool. Thank you.
Table 149. I'm looking out at the window.
I am all the way at the very, very end that way.
Thank you for coming.
Who is?
I can take
that's not directed toward us. Sorry.
Okay, I have been asked to go through a couple more tiny, very quick slides before I break. Thank you, first off, to our ASL interpreters. Thank you for the work that you have done here. Thank you, Fox Nakai, for filming. Thank you to our panelists, Nes, London, Cynta, and Sarah. Thank you to me, Mel Gillman, for facilitating. And also thank you to Intersection for the Arts. SF Zine Fest is a member of Intersection for the Arts. Intersection for the Arts is a bedrock Bay Area arts nonprofit that provides people working in arts and culture with fiscal sponsorship and resources to grow. I think that's the end. Yes. Okay, and thank you to you all for sitting through this hour with us. Please come find us, buy some zines, ask more questions. We really appreciate you being here.